I'm Michael Bain, and welcome to Triggered, coming to you from the secret hidden bunker in the Rocky Mountains, Dragon House Studios. About a year ago, we took a good look at the Taurus G3c, the compact version of the Taurus G3 line, which is an evolution of the G2, the Millennial. In other words, a line that Taurus has been working on for a lot of years. Well, today I want to revisit why I thought the G3c was such a great concealed carry gun, and then we're going to show you an interesting way that Taurus has decided to expand the line. You're going to want to stay with us for this. And by the way, yes, you can have it your way. What I want to talk about today is something that's not scary at all. It's this particular Taurus, this is a G3c, a G3 compact version. And what you may not realize is that this gun and its previous iteration, the G2, tricky, huh? And the iteration before the G2, which is the PT11, the Millennium, have been among the best-selling guns in the United States for years. They are very popular. They have very aggressive pricing. But I wanted to talk about this gun because I believe it's a real step up. I actually shot the G3s in prototype 2 years ago when I was down in Florida, and then was lucky enough to shoot it in production prototype roughly a year and a half to roughly in that time frame. So I've handled the gun as it went through all its iterations. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about with this gun today is the changes, the evolutionary changes, if you will, are thoughtful touches. Now, I think that's important. Sometimes you can see a change in iteration on guns, an evolution of guns, and you look at it and you go, what did they do that for? And the answer was because they could. They're focusing so much on what they could do, they didn't think about what they should do. But that's not the case with this Taurus. It is very thoughtful in its upgrades. So let me take you through those first. It's obviously polymer frame striker-fired pistol. And by the way, it comes with 3 magazines. Every gun company should give you 3 magazines. This is really great because you know what? You're going to carry this gun concealed. You're going to have it around your house. You need 3 magazines. Obviously, striker-fired pistol here. But Taurus has a restrike capability. What does that mean? It means that, say I go, and it goes click instead of bang. Maybe for whatever reason, it's one of my reloads. Or maybe it's some of the junk ammo that we're all using now because of the ammo shortage. The restrike is this. Pull the trigger again, and you've got essentially double action revolver trigger. Now, that's not a huge benny to me because most of us have been trained in basically the standard malfunction drills. Bang. So if the gun stalls, I don't have this thing dialed into my head that says pull the trigger again. Instead, I'll go through the drill. But one of the first things that jumped out at me was this has a really good trigger. It's got a 6-pound trigger in it. Yeah, it's got a bunch of take-up. But if you can see here inside, obviously you see the trigger safety, something we're all very, very familiar with on striker-fired guns. It's wider than usual. And as a consequence, when you've got a slightly wider trigger, your finger's force is distributed over this wider platform. It feels less. So you've got the take-up. Yes, you've got to come all the way back to here. Here's your wall, and then very quickly, there. And you can see the reset here. There's the reset. There's nothing I would change about this trigger. It's an excellent trigger for concealed carry. Other thoughtful touches. Let me start at the top. Here are the sights. It comes with 1 white dot on the sights, which is something I've been advocating for roughly 1 billion years. You don't need 3 dots. I don't like 3 dots. I usually black them out when I get them. In this case, I took the white dot and made it red just so it would pick up a little bit better with my eyes. But more importantly, this is Glock pattern sights. So if you don't like these sights, the aftermarket has billions of sights for Glocks, billions. Essentially every company has their own proprietary set of Glock sights. So whichever one you might like, you can find. It's a matter of driving this out the dovetail, unscrewing this, just exactly like you would a Glock. Now also look at the slide here. The slide is available in two types. It's available in stainless steel, so you got a two-tone gun, or this. It's coated with tinnifer. Tinnifer is one of the toughest coatings out there on a gun. It's more expensive to add it onto the gun, but it works out amazingly well. It will last forever. So you got a tinnifer slide. You've got the serrations front and rear. You've got a good trigger. Now let me talk about this grip. This is another thing that I'm really, really impressed with. You see these panels of stippling here. You could have got that right out of my head. I have had guns stippled, aftermarket stippled, and when they came back, they were crap in a box. I didn't like the stippling. It didn't do what it's supposed to do, which is hold your hand tightly against the gun. Here you've got roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stippling patterns. Your hand sets in the gun really, really well. They're exactly where they need to be. You see these little indentions here on the slide and on the other side, on the frame. They're essentially memory points. If I say to you, take your finger out of the trigger guard, that's where to put it. Or on your grip, look at that, there's your thumb. We're going to talk more about this gun when Triggered returns. Welcome back to Triggered, where we're talking about the new Taurus G3c. Just before I came out here to do this, Taurus sent me an announcement that said, hey, we're changing the G3 series, and we have one in the mail to you, but I do not have it yet. What they did was they added one more thing right here at the top. They added a plate system, the Toro system for attaching a red dot sight to it, which is great because that's the way we're all going. Essentially, you can get a G3 or G3c with 4 plates that, as near as I could tell from the list, covers pretty much every red dot sight on Earth. So you don't have to pay the money to have it milled. It's a really good accessory. And considering that you still got these Glock pattern sights, if you want to hire, say, suppressor size sights so you have a backup, it's not a big deal. I wanted to show you briefly, just as a size comparison, here's a Glock G26. As you know, I tend to compare everything to a Glock. So a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller than the G26. And the frame is obviously, as you can see here, is a little bit longer. But you've got 12 rounds in the Taurus instead of 10 rounds in the G26. But that sort of puts it in that ballpark. I am apparently the only person on Earth who didn't get the memo that one of the great things about the G-series Taurus guns is not only will they take the G3 magazines, these are Teflon coated, super slick, they'll also take the G2 magazines, and even better, they'll take magazines from a SIG 226. I've had a 226, actually went to my gun box and pulled out a bunch of 226 magazines, took this thing to the range, and perfect. So you can get 15 rounds, 17 or 18 rounds. You can also find factory SIG 20 rounders, and these are excellent world-class magazines. So all in all, in shooting this gun, shot like a house afire. Like I said, I pulled out a couple of SIG magazines, and I don't even know what was in them. There's a lot of 9mm in them. It was mixed stuff, some old, some new. And with just taking this gun out of the box, take the G3 out of the box, took it to my range, and started running 9mm rounds through it. It ran perfect. It shot well. It shoots light, which not every little gun does shoot. The other thing I just wanted to mention to you is it's easy to rack, and that's not necessarily the case with every small gun. Sometimes you got a great big spring in there, and it's going to wear you down. So that is the Taurus G3c. Remember, the G3c with the Toro optic system, that's the way you want to go. I've seen this gun for as low as 249 bucks, average $275 against an MSRP of a little over 300. The MSRP on the optics equipped gun, the setup for optics, is a little over 400, so you can probably expect to see it 350, 325. It is a great deal. The people that have these guns rave about these guns, and Taurus has done an amazing job of getting past their own past. Stay with us, because when Triggered returns, we're going to take a look at the new directions for the Taurus G3 line.
This week's Triggered is brought to you by Volquartsen Firearms. Excellence is essential. Taurus USA. Prepare and protect. Rock Island Armory Arms Corps, home of the STK 100.
Welcome back to Triggered, where we're talking about the Taurus G3 line. Obviously, you have the G3s, which are their full-size pistols, and you have a selection with or without the Toro optics cut. They come in colors. Then you have the G3c, which is the gun we've been talking about. But Taurus took an interesting direction. Rather than say functions and features being added, they decided to put some puzzle pieces together to make different guns. For example, this is the G3X. So it has the regular size G3 grip and the G3 compact type slide. Now, you may look at this and go, that's familiar. I wonder what that's kind of like. How about the Glock 19X? A lot of people said, why would you want a Glock with a size 19 shorter slide and a size 17 bigger grip? Who would want one of those? Became one of the biggest selling guns in Glock's line. What you have now is, if you have a bigger hand or you plan to be shooting it a lot, you now have the shorter slide with the longer grip frame. Also, longer grip frame accepts the 15-round grips, or the 15-round magazines, in addition to the 12-round standard G3c magazines. So that was kind of cool. But this is cooler. This is the G3 XL. So what we have is the G3c compact frame, the one that takes the 12-round magazines, just like that, with a longer slide. You can see here that you got about almost an inch longer slide. Why do I say this to me is the cool trick? Well, when you talk about concealed weapons, the slide, the length of the slide, is not nearly as important as the length of the grip, because the length of the grip is what you're going to have to conceal. This part slides down into the holster, slides down into your pants, if you will, and it's much easier to conceal a longer slide gun with a shorter grip than vice versa. So I think this is a really excellent choice. It also runs with the 15-round magazines. And if you live in a state that's not a slave state like Colorado, it'll also run with the 17-round magazines from the regular G3s. So all in all, you end up with a really neat set of choices. The G3c by itself, I still think, and if you look at the reviews on the internet, a lot of people think is one of the great undiscovered values in a concealed carry weapon. If you like the platform and want a little bit more sight radius, maybe a little bit more recoil reduction, you can have it in the XL. Or if you just have bigger hands and you want to get a big fat grip around the gun, you can have it on the G3X. So you can, in fact, have it your way. And I think that's a very important thing. Concealed carry is very personal. It's very individual. Everyone is going to be slightly different. It is impossible to come up with one size that fits all. So in Taurus's case, you've got a lot of options. I'm Michael Bain. Of course, you can find us on michaelbain.tv. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. And Triggered is always free. So tell your friends. We'll see you next week.